Hello, everyone. Hello, welcome to another panel of Virtual Summit by Global Changemakers. I'm Yasmin talking to you. I'm Program Manager at GCM, and I'm here to welcome you into another panel and also to give you some announcements. So as the panel continues, as the panelists share their insights and their experience, please use the questions box to ask them questions, and they're going to be answering them at the end. Also, please engage with us using social media, the hashtag VOIS2020. Everyone who tags us on social media will be automatically entering a prize, which is a full scholarship to Changemakers School and also a full scholarship to the premium pass, premium access pass to Steps to Startup by Social Shifters. So if you would like one of those prizes, simply take a picture of yourself attending the summit and tag us using the hashtag VOIS2020. Today, we have a beautiful panel of beautiful panelists, change makers from all over the world to share their experience with you. We have Garvita from India, founder of White Waste and Global Changemaker 2018. We have Shomi Hassan from Bangladesh, founder of Awareness 360 and GCM 2016. We have Joseph from the Democratic Republic of Congo, co-founder of Sitoya and GCM 2009. We have Maureen from Kenya, founder of Tulev Yema, GCM 2016. And as a panel moderator, we have Sandra from the Philippines, who is also an anchor at CNN Philippines and a GCM 2018. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to pass it on to Sandra so she can start. Please, again, use the questions box if you want to submit any questions, and we're going to be answering them at the end. All right, awesome panel to everyone.
All right, thanks so much for the introduction, Yasmin. And hello to everyone joining us. We're so happy you could be part of our first ever virtual youth summit. As Yasmin said earlier, my name is Sandra Shalsata. I'm from the Philippines, and I'll be moderating this panel. So the people panel discussion will focus on Sustainable Development Goals 1 to 6. That's no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, and clean water and sanitation. But before we talk about the future, I think it's important that we establish where we are today. 2030 is just 10 years from now, and we need to assess if what has been done so far, plus what we're doing today, is enough for us to get to our goals a decade from now. The latest Sustainable Development Goals report shows there has been progress, but still greater response is needed. For example, extreme poverty has declined significantly over the past 25 years, with 1 billion people having lifted themselves out of poverty. But the pace of change is slowing. And if we continue at this rate, business as usual, we're going to see a lot of people, millions of people, about 6% of the world still living in extreme poverty by 2030. The report actually had a lot of key findings that I'd like to go through briefly, just to give us an idea of where we are today. Global hunger has been on the rise since 2014. Maternal and child mortality rates have been reduced, but still at least half of the world's population lacks essential health services. More than half of children in the world today do not meet standards for reading and math. Many women continue to face structural disadvantages and discrimination, and at least 785 million people do not have access to basic drinking water. And you have to remember that these numbers can also change as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to impact the lives and livelihoods of so many people globally. The global health crisis has definitely created a huge wave of uncertainty for the future. But what we do know is this, that what we do now, how we act now, will help determine the kind of world we live in 10 years from now. So I'm very happy to be joined today by 5 amazing young people who are pushing the 2030 agenda forward in their countries. I'd like to invite each of them to share with us their work and how they got it started. So let's kick this session off with Garvita. Can you start us off?
Sure. Hi, Sandra, and thank you so much, Global Changemakers, for doing this. I think it's so lovely for all of us to come together when we're at home and do something and be a part of something so positive. And I'm very glad to be here. So just quickly to start off, I'm Garvita. I'm a 20-year-old change maker and environmentalist from India. And before I talk to you about my work, I just want to give you some information to take off from where Sandra started. So if you recollect, she said that there are millions of people without the access to clean drinking water. A few years ago, I think almost 5 years ago, I came across a piece of information that said 14 million liters of water are wasted every single year just in the water that we leave behind in glasses at restaurants. And that was a shocker because there are millions of people in the world who don't have the access to clean drinking water, whereas at the same time, we are exploiting this resource at such a large scale without even realizing it. What we feel is just a small, tiny little bit of water that we leave behind actually accounts to such a large number. And that's what really motivated and inspired me to start my initiative, Why Waste? So, Why Waste focuses on changing the mindsets of people towards natural resources, specifically water. And we try to optimize its usage, prevent its wastage, and build systemic change by coming up with really simple solutions to solve these problems. And for that, we started the glass half full movement at restaurants. So the glass half full is all about filling your glass only half instead of filling it full. And it's a really optimistic way of looking at water. Take only as much as you need, don't waste. And beyond that, we run a lot of more different initiatives with people from all backgrounds and from people of all types of people to really help them understand the importance of water. And beyond that, I'm also very involved in youth-led activities. And I'm very passionate about making young people and helping young people realize their ability to become change makers.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We can't wait to hear more from you later, Garvita. Can I ask Joseph to tell us a little more about himself and his work?
Hello, everyone. I'm Josef Nebojsa, and I've been part of Global Changemaker since 2009. So I've just finished, I think I'm in the 11th year of this, and it has been, I think, a great network of young people who are very inspiring, who are really pushing the world. And as you may know, most of my fellow who went in the same year, I think have really done a lot of work 10 years later. And so, first of all, I'm originally from Congo, and I grew up in Uganda actually as a refugee. And I went to the camp when I was 6 years old, and uh, facing the change of leaving your home, leaving everything to going to live in the refugee camp was huge. I was young, but I could really be able to tell that, life changed forever. And, after a number of years in the refugee camp, many challenges, came on, sickness. Uganda has a lot of malaria, for example. But then at the same time, issues of hunger, not being able to go to school. And so to me, as I continued to observe what was happening, there was a lot of sense of hopelessness among young people. And, even after leaving home because of conflict, trying to survive, in the refugee camp, so many people started dying of malaria, starvation. And so for me, seeing that, young people are not accessing education, it was clear that the hopelessness would be a sustainable problem. And so every day, I started to think, what can I do to have a different future? What can I do to help other people? And one thing I realized that, there was, two primary schools and a refugee camp which had around 40,000 people. But I continued to go to school for about 7 years. I completed in my primary school, and then I was lucky to go to a different school in town under scholarship. And so from that time, I learned of friends who were bringing the ideas of, how can we help ourselves, to continue to be in school, but also help other kids. And so since I was 14 years, I joined colleagues to run programs, to do tutoring programs, to establish education programs. And what we did later, we opened up a number of primary schools and refugee camps, which actually run by refugees, supported by refugees. And our program started now enabling the first group of kids to really do well in schools. We created partnerships with the secondary schools. Recently created partnerships with universities. And what we did, we created a chain of systems to enable kids to enroll in primary school and to be able to go to university. At the moment, we have about 2,000 to 3,000 children in school, full-time, about 50 full-time employees. And a lot of our students have finished universities from all over the world, and they are back doing a lot of work in the refugees camp. And going back to the SGDs, I think I've been working mostly on education part because when you go to low income countries, villages, refugee communities, I think many of them are not in school, and even those who are in school, they are not really learning well to be able to grasp the skills they need to go to the next level or to be able to have impact in the community. And what we've been doing was to be able to address this from the toughest communities. And I've seen hope, I've seen change, first on myself, but also on a bigger community in the refugees camp. And what I've seen is that young people, when they're given opportunities, especially in education, they think of new solutions which are really at the center of the problems they are facing. And that's why even being part of the global change makers, I always meet people who are coming from challenges which are different from mine, but still which are deep. And so speaking on this panel is always to encourage us to stay strong and to continue to believe in ourselves, because I've seen this at the moment, since 2018, I transitioned from being the executive director of Koburas because I had to move to a new place to live with my family. I have a wife and 2 kids now. I'm aging. And so I'm at the moment working with the MasterCard Foundation. It's a big foundation, mostly working, it has programs in Canada helping indigenous people, but at the same time, working a lot in Africa, mostly to address the problem of poverty. And this is through enabling and empowering young people to access quality education, tertiary education, and also employment. So at the moment, I'm working on a lot of programming around the continent to bring youth together, young professionals together, to increase access to employment, but at the same time to continue to work with young people to see how we can create a youth-led job, an innovative way to create jobs in the developing world. And I'm really excited to meet all of you, and also to continue to know that we're a big growing family which is really changing our new world. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing your story with us, and we look forward to hearing your insights as we move forward in the panel discussion. May I please invite Maureen to share with us her work and her story as well?
Thank you, Sandra, for having me, and also thank you for Global Changemakers in organizing such a great summit. My name is Maureen, and I'm from Kenya. My work is focused around SDG 2, Zero Hunger, and why I aligned myself to Zero Hunger is because I have my roots in a semi-arid region in Kenya that has one of the leading cases of malnutrition. So growing up, seeing women, especially mothers, having to make hard decisions of who will eat the present meal or another meal was really painful to me. And I thought the only way for me to change the narrative is for me to study nutrition. So I studied nutrition for my undergraduate degree And it was now while studying nutrition, while I was still in school, I decided the only way for me to change the narrative is through sharing the knowledge that I am acquiring in school. So that's how I founded Tulevyema, which is a Swahili word for let's eat right. So what we do at Tulevyema is we raise awareness of proper feeding habits in communities through nutrition education, and also train young women of reproductive age how to cultivate indigenous vegetables on vertical gardens for their consumption and sale of the surplus to meet other household needs.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. We look forward to moving the discussion further. May I please hear from Show Me next?
Yes. Like everyone said, I'm absolutely honored to be here with so many wonderful people. And thanks to Global Changemakers for bringing us all together amidst this time of crisis. This is like a platform of hope for me to actually, come together and share our experiences in different fields. So my work is centered around SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. I did not plan to work on this sector. It wasn't really. So what happened was I lost my mother in 2014, and she died from diarrhea. She was sick for only 1 day. And I and my family, we did not really take it very seriously because we thought it's just diarrhea, because who would imagine losing someone from diarrhea in the 21st century? And we didn't take her directly to the hospital. We were not really, we didn't give her the care that she probably deserved. But this just diarrhea could be fatal. I had no idea. But when I lost her, I did some research, and that's when I found out that it's not just my mother, but over 45,000 people died from diarrhea alone in Bangladesh alone. And then as I dig deeper, I found out the root cause is the lack of access to proper sanitation and hygiene. We are not even aware of these issues, of different aspects of WASH. And that's how I got introduced to the whole concept of WASH and the SDG 6. About 4.5 billion people globally, that's more than half the world, don't have access to proper sanitation and hygiene services and clean water. So that's when I thought that I don't want anybody else to lose their dear ones because of unawareness. And that's when 4 days after my mom died, I reached out to a community, sweepers colony, the sewerage workers community. And I told them that, look, 4 days ago, I lost my mother, why WASH is important, why washing hands is important. So when I started, even my relatives, my close friends, they were like, take some time to grieve, but at that point, I was just feeling so emotional, and I felt like I need to take action like right now, because if I'm late for even a day, maybe someone else will lose their dear ones. So that's how it started, and eventually I built, I co-founded Awareness 360 with my friend Rijvi Arifin. So this platform is for those people who are willing to do something for their community, but they need a little push, a little guidance. So that's how we started, with a very few people, but now I'm very happy to say that we are working in 23 countries. So all these young people, we train them how to conduct a community service project, how to do a WASH campaign. Our main focus is on WASH. So our main target beneficiaries are vulnerable communities. So we have worked with under-resourced school children, persons with disabilities, then we work with sex workers, and Global Changemakers has been a huge support for me in many of my projects, including one named Project MBBS, Make Brothels in Bangladesh Safe, through which we raised WASH awareness among the vulnerable communities and the sex workers especially. Through my WASH talk, a typical WASH talk would include sessions on how to wash hands properly, which we can relate to so much in the context of COVID-19. Then we also touch the topic of menstrual hygiene, because menstruation is still a taboo in Bangladesh and many other countries. So we want to break the stigma around it. We teach girls and women how to maintain their menstruation, how to make pads at home, how to filtrate water at home, what is the importance, what is the significance, because we work with people who don't even understand why it's important to wash hands. who don't even understand why it's important to keep their nails short or like take shower or cleanliness, because there will be like garbage thrown all around. So these might seem very basic things to from where I come from or my surroundings, but these people really lack the knowledge. So that's our main target, to actually raise the awareness. At the same time, I'm also involved with different global organizations as their WASH advocate, for example, Global Citizen. So through those channels, I get to meet like high level policymakers to whom I share my personal experience in the grassroots level through Awareness 360. What are the work I'm doing? What needs to be done? And I advocate for more investment in the WASH sector from a government level, from the policy level. So that's pretty much what I do.
All right, thank you so much, Shomi, for sharing your story, a very personal story. But I think it's what makes it more amazing is how you turned your experience into something positive, that you were able to change other people's life in the process. Now I'd like to invite our final panelist, Ellen, to tell her story as well, how she got started, what influenced her, and more about the work that she's doing. Ellen?
You guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure I had some tech troubles earlier. So hi everyone, my name is Shamba Ellen Chilemba, and I am incredibly honored to be here. It just feels so good to reunite with the PCM family. And so this is great, and it's also warming for me. Isolation life can be a bit lonely, so it's good to like virtually see as many of you as possible. Thank you for having me. Show me as you're speaking, I was itching to just go wash my hands. COVID 19 because yeah, this coming by your work. So my background is with Tuale, which works on SDG4 and SDG5. Our main focus is SDG5 gender equality, but then we use SDG4 education to enhance gender equality. And how that all started, I started thinking about Tuale when I was 15. I had a close friend that I met at our national library. We would meet every Saturday and usually exchange notes. We were both preparing for the same final exam, and so I was really strong at especially biology, history, geography, and she was particularly strong in math, physics, and chemistry. And so we used to exchange notes all the time. I'll be like, I need help with this, and she was just brilliant. Always wowed me. Always had tricks like, oh, you know how we tackle this physics problem? This is how we go about it. They're trying to ask you this, and she was someone that I was really inspired by. And as we started getting close to our exams, we would meet every Saturday. She stopped coming. And so at first I thought, oh, maybe she's busy, or maybe she's after something else. And she didn't show up until the exam period came. And so this is like, a couple of years back, before it was common for young people to have phones. And so we had no other way of reaching each other than meeting at this library spot. And so, yes, I started wondering what happened to her. I wrote my exams, and then about a couple months later, I ran into her and her mother at the market, and they were shopping. And so I'm like, hey, what happened? You stopped coming to the library. What's going on? How did the exams go? And she's like, oh, I didn't write the exams, and also I left school. I stopped with school. My family has found me a rich man that's based in Zambia. He runs all these businesses, and he wants to marry me and do help support paying for my brother and sister's education. And so it's a really good thing for me to marry this guy. And I was disappointed, but I was not surprised, because this was a common story in Malawi, where especially that time when child marriage was still legal, you had a lot of young people dropping out early to get married. And though for me, I was surprised, like, oh, someone's so brilliant, why? I've been told to hold my mic closer. Sorry for that. Yeah. So for me, it was, why is someone so brilliant has to drop out because of education not being free, and also because of family financial pressures. I started really thinking about the status of girls' education here in Malawi, and looking at the statistics. What I found was that only 33% of our secondary school aged children or people get to attend secondary school, and then of that percentage, only 6% are young women who should be in secondary school, attending secondary school. And then when you look at tertiary access rate, we're only looking at only 1% of tertiary age young women attending tertiary education. And so there's just this massive dropout at secondary and tertiary education levels. And most of that is driven by the school fees that come at that time, but also because of some traditional misinformation. There's this general expectation that, oh, a young girl is old enough to get married at this age, and so the family prefers to usually send a male child. And I know this is the case in a lot of countries. And so for me with Tuale, it was supposed to be a small summer project. I honestly was thinking I want to run a prototype because the year that we started with the units had just won the Nobel Peace Prize for studying Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, and the microfinance model was working really well. And so I was thinking, why can't we do something similar in Malawi, where we work with young women that are at that place where they're vulnerable to dropping out of school. They start businesses, they run the businesses, they save money, and then they go back to school. Sounded great. Got a GCM grant to start up the pilot project. That was 2012. And the whole plan was to work with 10 people. But on the first meeting day, there was this long line of women. So I'm walking there, 16-year-old me, I'm walking there with my proof, ready to pilot this project. There's a long line of women, and so I'm looking at the one woman I'm speaking to. I'm like, Messi, what's going on? I'm whispering, but from afar. And then I get there, and she's like, so I know you told me to find 9 other people who are interested in going back to school, but everyone kind of invited 9 other people. And so there were 150 women waiting for me to sign up for this program. And honestly, my reaction was, oh shit, this was not the plan. This is like way too big. But it was actually like the statistics were there, but also like seeing the human reaction that yes, there's this need for young women to access education. There's this need for business or economic opportunities for young women. And so that was the beginning of Tuale. That was 2012. We've been around for 8 years, 2020 now. We've had our ups and downs, but we've gone through the microfinance model. We've expanded to vocation skills. We give out school grants. We have scholars. We provide education classes, and we also were able to save up money from some of the products that we used to make and buy our own land. And so now we have a women's center where we provide a community library. Mostly, we have all these activities, but most important for us is that we're a safe space for young women to gather and encourage each other and dream together and sort of get going with whatever goals they're really passionate about. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellen. So as you can see, to everyone who's watching us from all over the world, we have an amazing group of panelists joining us. I'd just like to remind everyone who's with us right now that you can send us your comments or your questions, and we'll try to accommodate as many as we can. In fact, we're already getting some right now. You can direct your question to all the panelists or to any one of them in specific. I'd like to kick off the session by bringing up a question from one of our global change makers joining us right now. So what are your personal experiences of making people from more privileged backgrounds empathize and support others? And how have you made those connections? Would any of our panelists like to start it off? I'll just repeat the question. Yes, go, of course, Shami.
Sure, if you want to repeat the question for everyone, please go ahead.
Oh, yes, of course. So the question is, what are your personal experiences of making people from more privileged backgrounds empathize and support others? And how have you made those connections?
Okay, so for me, it was actually more of a challenge to work with my intended beneficiaries because of the lack of education, lack of awareness, they wouldn't even realize why we are there in the first place. So for me personally, that was more of a challenge compared to what the question is asking. But for me, what worked really is the power of storytelling. So I saw that when you share a personal experience, people can really connect to it. So that worked for me in both the communities that I work with, as well as those from the privileged background. So for example, my volunteers, the members of our organization. So they would so when I share my story, how I incurred a loss because I didn't do this, and also another thing that works like magic is the results. So what I have done before, what I have done previously, and what was the impact of it. So if there is a proper way to measure your impact and to share, so I think it's very important when we do a project, it's very important to do proper documentation and reporting. So it's not just taking a photo, like taking a post photo, but rather photos of activities, what you're actually doing, and some measurable taking some ways to measure the impact before and after. So something that I do is surveys, for example, that what did they know about different wash, like how to wash hands properly, what is the proper technique, things like that, and after, what's happening. So for example, we also go back to follow up with these communities, and when we see that, okay, they still have the poster, the hand washing poster stuck on their wall, that indeed shows a success. So when we share this kind of personal experiences, that why we started this, what is our main cause, and also sharing other people's experience, what is actually happening in the world, and also what we have done so far, and what was the impact, what change did it bring. So I think that was a very good way for me to actually engage more people on board.
Yeah. So I mean, personally also as someone working in Siliza, which is where Tuale is based, which is in Lilongwe, the capital city of Malawi. Siliza is one of the poorest communities in our city. It's more of kind of like a squatter settlement that's kind of building up to a small town. But so the reason why I'm mentioning that is that I'm someone from outside of the community. I grew up with the privilege that my parents were very committed to my education. They could afford to send me to school. Dropping out was sort of no. And just in terms of my access, affordability, my parents could afford that. And so whenever we go into the community, for us, it's not, we always try, just basic level of things. There's no one that so it's really about laying the ground that I'm not going in as someone with knowledge, but rather I'm going in as someone with access to resources for all of us to use.
Um, all, hello. Oh, well, again, I'm very happy to be saying at this time that we're getting a flood of questions, and we're going to try to accommodate as many as we can. In fact, I'm seeing some of them overlap. So this is a question that a lot of our viewers a lot of our audience want to know. And I think that all the panelists can address this. What is one major challenge you faced when you were starting your initiative, and how did you overcome it, or how did you address it? Would any of our panelists like to start us out?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the biggest challenges, and I think everyone would agree with me on this, is all about starting out. What is that first step that you're going to take? You really don't know what is the best thing that's going to work and not going to work. So and very often, and especially in my case, for the first 6 months, everything that I was trying to do really didn't even work. And it was all about trying to learn what I did, what went, or what we were trying to do as a team, what went right, what went wrong, what worked, what didn't work, what do people want. So in like, for example, in my case, the first thing that I tried to do was get restaurants and try to convince them to fill their glasses only half instead of filling it full. But for them, it was something that they couldn't do, because filling the glasses full is, courtesy, and they are rated based on that. And there's a lot of issues around that. And they said, oh no, the customers are not going to like the fact that we're giving them less water. They don't care about, anything else. they want the hospitality. So and then parallelly, it was also trying to convince people that they need to consume lesser water, because there are people in this world who do not have enough clean drinking water. Like just paralleling it with the previous question is, how do you convince people? I think the best way, one of the best ways to do that, and completely agreed with what Shomi and Ellen said, but one of the other things that really helped even in the process of starting out is helping people experience things. Helping them really understand how things work and how they would be different if we did things differently. And one of the, and just picking up from a recent scenario of how wonderfully the environment has been able to rejuvenate itself during the COVID crisis, has actually helped convince so many people who are against climate action that climate action actually, like climate change actually is a thing. So really getting them to experience it was something very, very important for us in the beginning, figuring out what that experience should be like. And that's when we came up with the concept of glass half full, where you're really experiencing and you're visualizing something. And that became a convincing point. And another thing, to start off and to convince people was really trying to make sure that all of the people who are involved in the change that you want to bring are in some way benefiting from it, or at least they see some kind of positive in it. So I think a culmination of all of these and just a lot of perseverance from your side can really help, because it's not easy in the beginning, and you might just feel lost for a very, very long time, but just keep at it, because it will work out.
That's true. For me, the challenge was also where to start and how to start. And how I overcame this challenge was I identified people in my community. Since I was still in school, there is a school club that is called, it's like a leadership school program. So I identified with people who had already gone through that program. Some of whom who already had programs that are running. So I asked them some of the questions that I felt I needed answers before starting. And I also read a lot with regards to the area that I wanted to work, that with regards to the challenge that I wanted to address. So I think finding people who are working in the area that you want to work in, or a field related to it, as well as vast reading, are some of the ways that helped me overcome my teething challenges.
So I wanted to also add on that, and I also feel that actually this question connects even to the previous one. Of course, it's different from different perspective, because the other one is, how do you get people who may not have your experience or the experience of the challenge you're addressing to really buy into what you're doing. And this is now more about where you're starting from. And one of the experience I can share is like the work I've been doing most of the time, we're working like with the refugees who have less to live on, and whose main goal would be to have food, to have medication every day. And so to convince them to spare small of what they're doing and invest in education for their children, we needed to really work, strategize in different ways. But one of the things which I really realized was very helpful, I think, is to be able to continuously try to show why you're doing what you're doing, why you care about it, and why it should be important for everyone. And it's so easy for someone who is hungry or who is sick to focus on the immediate needs. And so for us, we said, while these immediate needs are important, the future is even more important. And this is more to the children, because if you're a parent, you're not able to provide for a child. It's important if you can spare small and think of how the next 20 years, when these kids are alone, when I'm not there, how do I prepare them to really be able to do that? And what we did, of course, was that as a young person who is doing whatever you're doing, you really need to show a lot of discipline and commitment, because when we started, of course, parents did not buy what we are doing. So initially, we had to run education programs, but for free. And we targeted mostly orphan children. And in the school we started, we offered orphan children education which became better than the education UNHCR was giving. So in the later days, the parents asked, how can now our children come in this school? Because we bought the kids uniform, they could get lunch and breakfast, and these are not things which are provided in any other school, even government schools. So parents started us, so we told them this is for orphans. But then we realized that if now we sit with the parents, we can work with them to share the cost. So parents started contributing meals. They don't have money most of the time. So we say we can bring the flour or small beans, and then we can plan. And then we started sitting with the parents committee to say, this is what we need to pay teachers. You can pay this half, and then we see how we can raise this other half. So slowly, with the results, the way kids are looking beautiful, things started changing. We reached the point the school could raise 70% of what it is running. The first school we started up to now, when the national exams are out, it's among the best schools in the country, and it's in the center of the refugee settlement. So to me, I feel like it's been like a success story. And communities around the world, they fail, especially the rural communities, to sustain themselves. But this thing was sustained completely by refugees' parents who have nothing. And so to me, I feel like being focused, doing your best to show results and show the why. It really makes people, both vulnerable communities, to take ownership, and also for other people to really come to understand and support. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing that with us. Again, I'm so happy to share that we're getting a lot of feedback and a lot of questions from our audience right now. So for our panelists, I'd like to ask if you can answer the next questions in maybe a minute or less, so that we can address as many questions as possible. So the next question that we're getting from our viewers is, a lot of people are getting prepared for a new normal post-pandemic, because we all know that the COVID pandemic has really impacted so many people across the globe. How is this affecting your initiatives, and how do you plan to sustain this post-pandemic afterwards? Any of them can start. Any of the panelists, please.
Okay, COVID-19, the current pandemic, has really affected our programs in terms of like the nutrition education talks involves coming together or meeting, and one of the precautions that we're being asked to observe is not meet in groups. So how we are able to overcome this is we are currently working on a program where we'll be able to roll out the nutrition education through social media. This may not be able to reach all of our target audience, but since we are again not able to meet physically, we have decided to take that approach, and we are sure we might not reach all our target audience, but it's still better than not doing any activity. For the setting up of the sack farms, for that we have to suspend. However, we have been in contact with our women, our target group, and actually last week I had a conversation with one of them, and she told me she's helping one of her neighbors set up the sack farms through directing her over the fence. So that's what we are currently doing. Yes. So we are using technology to run our activities in the best way we can right now.
So quickly to share, now that I've been doing my work for about 14 years, now we have a lot of students who have finished university. Actually, after this call, I have a meeting with the 25 of our students. Some of them are at university, others are finished. We're planning how do we support some of the initiatives in the refugee camps in rural communities. as now young professionals to really address the challenges and to help the program to really be able to stay going even after COVID-19. And of course, with this other work I'm doing with the MasterCard Foundation, for it, it's a resourced, organization. Actually, there is a lot of funding program we are establishing to enable like youth, especially around Africa, to be able to sustain their initiatives, and to many youth are coming up with a response for COVID-19, and we're working with the different partners around the continent to make sure youth are really empowered, supported to really be resilient and overcome the challenges COVID-19 may come with.
May I invite one of the other panelists to share as well on the topic? How is the COVID-19 pandemic affecting your initiative, and how do you plan to sustain your activities even after this crisis?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Show me.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do it in like 30 seconds. So one, definitely, since most of our work is in restaurants, so that's not happening because restaurants aren't really open right now. So what we're really using, but we had a lot of work outside of that as well on educating people to how they can save water at home on their own, and that's become very relevant for us right now because everyone is at home. And so we have this beautiful concept of how each person can save 200 liters of water every day at home. And given the crisis and the fact that everyone is at home, we tend to consume water at a much higher rate than normal. So this is really something that has come out for us. And I just think, coming out of this, the key thing would be trying to find our new normal. There is always, I think, something new that you can do, and there's always a need for the art in each of the fields that we're trying to work in. And it's about aligning ourselves and being a part of the change.
Thank you, Garpita.
So for us, we think if there is anything that COVID-19 has taught us, it is the importance of investing on water, sanitation, and hygiene. I think we have already made that point. So I hope that after this pandemic is over, what we will focus on is to make sure that people who are actually learning about the importance of washing hands, how to wash hands, because there's a difference between hygiene education and behavioral change. So we all know it's important, but do we actually do it? So we will focus on that whether our beneficiaries are actually continue these processes when this entire pandemic is over, because it's not just you do this when you're sick or you're afraid of contaminating a virus or something. You have to do this all your life, every day. So that's something we are going to focus on, and I hope that world leaders will prioritize the wash sector in future, given what it has caused us, because all these diseases are honestly, they're preventable. So we can easily prevent these kind of diseases. And right now, how we are coping, obviously, this is not a usual disaster, because we have to ensure the safety and protection of our own members too. So we currently have stopped everything, obviously, like all our projects. However, we have contact persons in different communities, like community leaders. So we are encouraging them to foster all these awareness campaigns. And also, we're using a lot of social media posts to encourage other people to, do all things necessary to prevent COVID-19 spread. We are also arranging a lot of live sessions on mental health, online resources, things like that to cope with this pandemic situation.
All right, thanks so much, Shomi. Again, we're getting a lot of questions right now, and we won't be able to tackle every single one of them here, but I'd like to invite our audience, if you have a question for any one of the panelists or for our organizers after this panel discussion, please do send it to them, and perhaps we can get the panelists to respond to your questions. If for those who are watching right now, if you're wondering where Ellen has gone, Ellen would have actually liked to stay with us for the whole panel discussion. However, she experienced a power outage in her city, so she will not be able to join us for the remaining time. But please do feel free to send us your questions for her if you have them. And for all our panelists who are still here, we will try to address as much of your questions as possible. So one of the people watching us right now is asking, how do you turn your passion into a career. A lot of them know that you need to earn an income, you need to earn a living. So how do you turn your passion or your initiatives into something that can sustain you long term and allow you to work on it full time? Any of our panelists?
I can quickly respond here. So actually, initially, I went to school. I did biochemistry for my degree, and I wanted to continue to be a medical doctor. But then, the last semester I was doing like, my university degree. I realized that the work we were doing back home, I was studying in the US, so the work we were doing back home in Uganda had really grown. We had thousands of kids who were in school, and most of the work, fundraising especially, and networking depended on me. So I had really taken up full-time school, but also full-time running the projects in Uganda. And we had, we're raising now thousands of dollars to sustain, like to pay employees. So now I started thinking, if I go on to a medical degree, there's a high chance I will really need to focus a lot, and the work may really move back and fail, and many kids will drop out of school. So I felt like, if that ever happens, I will feel guilty, and my medical career will also still not impact lives that much, because I want to be feel any more confident. So I decided now to go back to Uganda, take up the full responsibility of being an executive director, build a team. And of course, part of it, I was able now to raise, to build a budget, to be able to have salary. Of course, when you're doing this type of work, it's really hard to compare yourself with other people, like to get the salary you deserve, especially in the beginning. So it's a career you build a budget, you build a team, and most of the time you're the last person to be paid. So in the long term, you can be paid. The new executive director we brought now is getting full-time salary, but I did not enjoy that much. But I think with that sustained progress and growth, anything you do, most people actually who make a lot of money, they did not really start with a plan to make money. Follow your passion, do your very best, be patient as you do that. I think the most thing you need to enjoy the impact you're having. But I think anything can really be able to give you a salary you need, because it always depends on how much impact you're having and the service will pay you. Thank you.
That's
Thanks
true.
so
I
much,
agree.
Joseph. Yes. Maureen, yes, of course.
That's true. I agree with Joseph. In the beginning, you might not be able to get the amount of money that you wish to earn. However, with persistence, you will get there. So I think keep being persistent, and you will get to where you want to. You'll get to the digits you want to earn.
Yeah, so very quickly for Awareness 360, if I say we are not at that stage yet to actually generate a revenue and actually pay for our employees or anything like that, because we're still very much focused on community-based crowdfunding. So I think an important aspect is to bring a sustainable way to actually fund our projects. So I think that would be an avenue too. So we're still working on that. We are not at that stage yet. For me personally, I'm thinking of studying because I just completed my undergrad in economics, but for my master's, I'm trying to see if there is any program relevant to my work, to my organization's work, so that I can, bring that knowledge. I have a broader knowledge on that area, so that will probably help me in future. So I'm still not focused on that yet. But as my fellow panelists said, if you persevere, then you'll get there.
Yeah, I think I would kind of agree with Shomi, because I'm in a very similar situation. In fact, I still haven't finished my undergraduate degree. I still have another year and a half to go. But I think the key is to really find out the stream of study that would relate to your work, because at the end of the day, some kind of formal knowledge always helps you do better in bringing the change that you want to see. And if you are able to really identify what that is, you can parallelly develop your work and at the same time, study it. And I just, to think out loud, for example, I'm very passionate about the environment. So maybe studying environmental sciences or environmental technology can be something, because I'm an engineering student right now. So really seeing how we can leverage technology to protect the environment is a path that could be possible. So yeah, just figuring out what would relate best is something you can definitely do, and then probably build a career out of it. And as change makers, something that I've learned from a lot of people is that policy plays a very key role. And if you are very, very very involved in the work that you're trying to do or the change that you're trying to bring, you can always head over to the direction of global leadership and public policy, and then step into your again, I don't really have the best knowledge because I've not gone out there yet, but this is from whatever I've learned.
Yes, I absolutely agree with all our panelists on that. And I like something in particular that Joseph said earlier, which is that you don't look for money, but it will come. And I think you really just need to keep working on your passions. So that would definitely be our advice to everyone who's joining us right now. Again, I wish we had more time, but we're really limited right now. So the organizers have actually sent you a link on Facebook that you can join if you'd like to continue your conversation with some of our panelists and get more advice from the other global change makers. We have an amazing group of global change makers. So many of them have amazing things to share. So please do join us on Facebook. And for all our panelists, I have one last question for you. And I'm sorry, I wish I could give you more time, but you have 30 seconds each to answer this. What would be your final advice to all the people watching us right now who either have initiatives or starting out or want to expand their initiatives? Your advice to them.
Okay, I'll go first. So just one word: starting small, starting now. Don't wait.
All right. Thank you very much, Shomi. Who would like to go next?
For me, it's start now. You don't have to have a
Okay. I think from my side, like I said, I grew up in the refugee camp, and I think life showed me the worst case. I've lost 2 siblings when I was in the refugee camp. But one thing which I have seen is that as young people, we have one gift, and that's life. And the best way we can use our life is to make a world a better place, and increasing hope by doing the best we can. And so, as young people, whatever you're doing, think of 50 years, what impact you want to have. And when you look back, let us be proud of the change you'll have created. Thank you.
Yeah, just to quote one of my favorite leaders, Gandhiji: be the change that you wish to see, and you will make the change that you want to see with perseverance, resilience, passion, and a single-minded focus. And today, the world needs each and every one of us more than ever, and we all need to step up and be the change makers. So here's inviting you all to become the best change makers that you possibly can.
All right, thank you very much to all our panelists for your amazing insight. And thank you all to everyone who's joining us. Thank you for being with us. Can we have a virtual clap for a round of applause for all our panelists? I'd like to hand it off now to Yasmin, who will give you some information about what you can look forward to in the next coming days. Yasmin?
Thank you so much, everyone. I'd just like to thank all the participants who joined us for this panel today. Thank you to all our amazing speakers. This was very, very inspiring, very encouraging. I'd just like to let the participants know that we are going to be sharing the recordings by email. So if you had to miss part of the session, or if you had any internet connectivity issues, you are going to have access to this. I would also like to encourage you to join our Facebook group so that we can continue this discussion. And tomorrow is our next panel. So tomorrow at 12 p.m. GMT, so noon GMT, I'll see you guys for a panel on planet. And yes, just before you leave, please fill out a very quick poll, just so that we have some feedback from you. And if you would like to give any extra feedback, feel free to email us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye. All the best.
Thank you.